And we are back. I'm Skip Murphy here with Steve McDonald. Our co-host has kind of moved off camera, Susan Olson. We have Josh Youssef here, as well as Billy Baer, who has gone viral, TV, newspaper, magazines, everything else because of a run-in we happen to live in the same town, Guilford, New Hampshire, where the school board decided to show its totalitarian ways and is a great demonstration of a small-town fiefdom by elected officials who decided that they did not have to be accountable to the citizens that, quote-unquote, they serve. To me, being a conservative with libertarian leanings, this was a great example of government saying, we are no longer governing, we are ruling. And that came out pretty doggone clear. And I want to say thanks for spending a few minutes with Granite Rock.
Right, no, my pleasure. Great.
So Susan Olson came up with a great question for you, because you asked, where do you want to go from here during this conversation? She said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, that's a great question, so I'll ask, what are you going to do next?
I'm not really sure. I mean, obviously I have these criminal charges kind of hanging over my head, which is, as an attorney and as somebody who's never been arrested, it's very disturbing. I mean, it was a humiliating experience. I watched the video and it turns my stomach. I mean, literally, I get sick to my stomach. I'm watching this video and it's hard for me to identify with that person on the video being me. That's the other guy usually, and I'm on the other side of the equation watching the video of the defendant getting dragged. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, I can't. That's me. I can't believe it. And also, I'm not used to seeing myself on camera that much, so that's even more strange. But I'm having a hard time realizing that, but I know it's a fact. I mean, these people arrested me, and now I'm being prosecuted, and it's very disturbing. I'm concerned with my reputation. I was humiliated publicly. I'm concerned with how it's going to affect my income. I'm not licensed currently in New Hampshire to practice law, but I intended to be. I'm concerned about how it's going to affect that. And how many people want to hire a lawyer who's got a picture of himself all over the country getting dragged out in handcuffs? I mean, it's very disturbing when I think of that, and I don't know what these guys are going to do with the charges, but I know I'm not pleading guilty, because as far as I'm concerned, if the statute for disorderly persons includes that kind of behavior, then there's a real problem in New Hampshire. There's a bigger problem here than I thought. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to go any further because we're in the middle of putting together a legal team, and I don't know this prosecutor, but he better be really good, because he's. I worked in the district attorney's office in New York City, in the Bronx, for 2 years. While I was in law school full-time, I was a trial assistant, basically preparing murder, rape, kidnapping, and armed robbery cases for trial for 2 years. So, when I see this going on in a town like this, the things I've seen in courtrooms in New York City in the early 90s, when the murder rate, for instance, was 300% higher than it is now. 2,000 plus murders in 1993 in New York City. Last year there were like 700 or 800. So that puts it in perspective. It was insane. There were shootings right in the parking lot. There were shootings in the courthouse. You talk about disruptive behavior. I saw people who were in the audience during trials get up, every word you can imagine, at the judge, in their face. They didn't even get arrested. So I come to New Hampshire and I speak up at a board meeting, and like I said, if it weren't for Joe Wernick saying those people want to whatever, I probably would. I had no intention of speaking again, unless it came, which I think the agenda called for coming around again for another 2 minutes. I could have taken another 2 minutes. I'm sure I would have used it.
That's all right. But Joe Wernick does that to everybody that disagrees with Joe Wernick. But it was just, the idea that this is what's going on, and like I said, with my background, seeing real crime and real victims and real defendants. It puts me in that category, and it's humiliating, and it's really disturbing. And like I said, this prosecutor better be like, well, I don't know. He's got to be a magician, because. Let me flip it for you.
And if there is a jury trial, which if I'm not sure, I haven't looked into it that far with New Hampshire law, but if there's going to be a jury trial, which I'm going to demand.
You know what I see?
I don't know, man.
Well, let me flip the picture for you. I see a man who went to seek redress from their elected officials because they willingly allowed your daughter to see teen pornos, as well as all the other students in there. This is something that should not have happened. I think you embarrassed them, and you were there to
you
defend
think
your
so?
daughter. Oh, I absolutely believe that.
That was a joke.
Yeah, well, the problem is that we see this over and over again, that things that used to be criminal years ago are just, you see it in the school system, and they're injecting a different philosophy from what parents are trying to teach their kids at home. And I certainly
Hold on a minute. You are on camera, you know. Okay.
And I see you standing up and saying, enough of this. You cannot continue to teach our students, my child, something that is counter to what I'm trying to teach them at home. Otherwise, you would never have had the emotion that you did when you went there.
It wasn't even about the content. Obviously, I wouldn't want my children reading that. They're probably two of very few teenagers who haven't read this at this point around the country. But they, as far as I know, haven't read this yet. And they've probably seen little pieces slip out from different places because they've been, seeing some of the videos and stuff. But it wasn't even about the content. If a community decides that this is what they want in their schools, then go ahead. I'm not going to tell them what to do. But it wasn't informed consent. There was no consent. There was no notice. There was no consent. And to a large extent, if there was consent, it wasn't informed consent. The fact that like Josh referenced before, the fact that they put out the notice, the no-notice notice on Monday, which was the day of, which I didn't know about literally until we got in the car and Marina handed the notice to me and said, I just got this. This is the notice they sent out about the book that was issued over a week prior. And that was after they knew that that I was all over them.
By the way, that notice was more of a sales pitch. They were trying to sell the book more than anything.
It was basically like a marketing tool. The close, and I don't have the paper in front of me, and I haven't seen it since, but I know it said something to the effect of the book depicts
unhealthy relationships.
Unhealthy relationships or something to that. You want the truth? If I got that notice before the book was issued, I would have read the notice. If I didn't go any further and go to the library and dig the book out and go online and this and that, there's a very good chance that really having a problem with the content of that book, not just that page 313, many things, and there are reviews that are coming out on that book that are going to change this whole debate away from the salacious nature of page 313 and put it in a totally different context. So that's coming very soon. I could have probably signed that no-notice notice. That's how little notice there was about what was really in that book.
What's a real shame, though? The shame is that we entrust our kids to these people's care, and we feel like we have to read the entire assignment before signing off on this. We don't have the ability to trust these people anymore.
I think you're absolutely right, because now with the advent of Common Core, and we're seeing examples over and over again of some of the information that they're purporting to be the truth in the Common Core text, and we as adults who were trained and schooled much better than the current group of kids, and I have apologies to both of you, but when they try to distort what is, like parts from the Constitution, you got to go, there is an agenda here. There is a reason for this. And they're trying to get away with that. And they're seeing the pushback from parents to say, you can't keep doing this anymore. And this is just one part, the educational part that, Billy, you're going through here. We're seeing this all over the place in lots of areas of our lives because of that push of people who have other ideas of the values that we should be living by. And that's what I'm so tired of it. Leave us alone. If parents have a moral code that they want to teach their kids, do not try to subvert that, especially in the schools.
I guess what would the result be if Billy said, I don't want her reading 19 minutes. I'd like her to do a literary analysis on the book of Romans. How would that work?
Probably not go over too well with that current crop of, I believe, the leaders of the school system and the school board, because I do believe there is something that they're trying to do, and I believe... I may sound like a conspiracy theorist, but there's enough information out there to say I've seen enough of the school systems around the country and some of the stuff that goes on to say there is an agenda for more secular humanism than it is for anything else. And they don't care what the parents' moral code or philosophy is to life. They believe only they have the right things to teach your kids.
Listen, I know what public schools are like. I didn't have any illusions that this was going to be something, generally speaking, other than what it is. I did not think it would be like Josh said about trust. That's what this is about.
Yes.
You need to first reasonably expect that they might introduce something like this to even check for it. And I would have never imagined it would have been this far. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
That's why I could have signed that no notice that came out Monday. I might have signed it.
Yeah.
Now the fact that I might have signed it, that is, if somebody like me would have signed that, under the circumstances what that book is, that is total deception.
It is.
It's fraud, is what it is.
But we're seeing that more and more with some of the materials that a concerned parent goes back and looks at the homework, looks at the text, looks at the lesson plans, yada, 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 and puts it up on the internet. I mean, that is the disruptive technology that we're seeing, because it isn't just what happened in Guilford. It's a pattern that we're seeing all over because of the internet, that we can then go and say, look, guys, here's the pattern. And this is not a good pattern, because it's not teaching our kids what we believe to be the foundational ideas that made this country great.
Other than all of that, there should have been notice, and there should have been the
Example.
opportunity. There should have been the opportunity for informed consent.
Yes.
And there was neither. And now we find out that last year there was neither. So how about all the kids? How about all the 14 and 15-year-old kids who read that book last year? This year is obviously different. Who read that book last year, and those images are in their mind. And that image on page 313, the truth is, and we will see soon, because I have people who are doing, very, very experienced people who are college professors in English for 30 and 40 years, doing research on this, reading that book, and they're going to come up with analysis of that book. And it's going to be like nothing we've seen here. So if this author thinks that, like, oh, this is great, I'm getting all this positive, you're getting a lot of publicity now, but wait till the next wave of publicity comes out on this book. And how about those images that are in these kids' heads that you can't get out? Does the school board have a prescription for unreading something? I don't think so.
No, because, and I will tell you, they probably don't care, nor do the curriculum folks care, because they have to approve that to go forward. So there was a conscious decision to allow that into the school system. So you're right, it is deception. Unless they actually take all of the controversial parts and put that in the notice, how are you going to know?
It's deception, or it's gross negligence at best.
I'm not going with the negligence part.
It's conspiracy at worst.
Well, at worst, and it's gross negligence at best.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I hear you, and it's getting to the point where parents have to say, we have to get more involved. We have to basically vet everything that our kids are being taught. We can't, as you said, I think we're almost at that point where we have to do that, because we can't trust those that are supposed to be in charge.
But
and
they're putting a roadblock in front of every opportunity to a parent to even object.
Well,
for example,
this is the example.
You asked the question, well, how am I supposed to interact with my elected officials?
Right.
Bring it to the principal.
I already did
but
that.
But the principal is, I guess in a manner of speaking, a different branch of government. I mean, we've got the school board's the legislature, so to speak, the local legislature of the school. Well, I've already brought it I want you to oversee the principal.
Yeah, the principal and the superintendent, they're kind of like the executive.
Yeah.
The problem is that a lot of school boards have become not bastions to defend the taxpayers against the quote-unquote professionals, but they've become subverted, and we see that here a lot in New Hampshire, where the school boards are nothing more than the local ambassadors of the school board association here in New Hampshire.
The interesting, what does that make the police force? I mean, I felt like it seemed, and I understand how things work, okay? I've been involved with things, but I mean, it looked like the relationship between or among the police force, the school administration, and the school board, you can't distinguish among them.
GrokTV.